This week, in Driving Passions, we see what it takes to tame an 8-litre, 550 horsepower Dodge Viper. And we look at the Skoda Felicia, much changed since Volkswagen took over. And we chase some of the world's rarest and fastest classic cars around Italy in the Miglia. Today, you can go out and buy any number of supercars that have more power than a Formula One car had not so long ago. And all you'll need is a driving license and a whole heap of money. Unsurprisingly then, several fall into unskilled hands with occasionally disastrous consequences. But one supercar manufacturer, Chrysler, is offering a course to its prospective buyers, giving them a chance to try out their new toy on a racetrack before venturing out onto the public road. And when that toy is this Chrysler Viper Venom 550, it's a course worth taking. With a top speed of nearly 200 miles per hour from its 8-litre V10 engine, it's just as well Chrysler has chosen Justin Bell, son of legendary sports car racer Derek Bell, to make sure you know how to handle the power when you do eventually venture out onto the public road.
So what we're going to do, we're going to be teaching you to go through this sequence of corners here, and at Thruxton, in fact it's the only part of the track that you're going to have to actually brake and get a bit technical on. So stay in the middle of the circuit here. And the car's quite heavy, so you've got to balance it on the throttle and be gentle with the steering. And that's all because, you know, in a big car, when you have a lot of weight, you don't want to do anything very violently. So, okay, braking down. It's about second gear through here. I'm doing it a little bit slower, just sort of to be smooth, because it's like any sport. You don't want to do it violently, or if you try to hit, you know, a tennis ball too fast without having a good technique, you'll never be able to actually ever do it very well. So through the left-hander here, accelerating up, back through the right. The car moves quite a lot through here, and you've got to release it across the circuit. It's all about really trying to scrub off as little speed as possible. Okay, and then bring it to a stop about here.
Many such cars come to grief because their drivers are unable to judge their cornering limits properly, which is why Bell has devised a slalom test to show owners exactly how to keep their cars on the straight and narrow.
Now the purpose of this is the slalom test. You're not supposed to hit any cones over, right? But come back and forwards in the fastest time. I'll be timing it. It's the only competitive event. The object is, obviously, it's a big car, so we want you to sort of feel what it's like with the weight transfer from side to side, but mainly have a good time. Okay. And you've got some fast times to beat.
Good.
All right?
Marvellous. Thank you very much. Let's go.
He has done it. Excellent. $29.4.
G'day.
Very good. Of course, you know, you obviously missed out about 3 cones, which you didn't see. Very good.
It's also just as important to learn how to stop such a beast properly.
The thing is with driving, obviously everyone can put their foot on the gas pedal and go fast, but especially for us sitting next to them, we like to know that they can actually stop with the braking. So here we've got an exercise that they come down here, brake between 2 cones, and actually with the maximum braking pressure, which he did very well, come down, stop the car without locking up the wheels. Because as soon as you lock up the wheels, in fact, you have no control. And whilst it's a very basic thing, we find a lot of people actually don't know how to brake properly. They go on and off the pedal. They actually almost get whiplash if you're the passenger in the car. What we try and do is just make sure people actually can learn a little bit more about their car especially with the Dodge Viper. It's a very heavy car. So we want people to be able to learn how, a bit of sympathy with the machine. Also, when you brake hard, that you don't lock up tyres. In an accident situation, perhaps avoid one.
But there's really only one good way to find out exactly what it's like to drive your car as fast as you can. And that's to go out onto a racetrack with an instructor beside you and have a go yourself. If you have a supercar and you take a course like this, you'll not just have a lot of fun, you'll also learn how to stay safe and, most important, how to really exploit your car's performance without being a danger to yourself or the public.
Think Eastern Europe. Remember all those images of big, ugly, polluting factories covering towns and people in gray smoke, building the world's worst cars, horrible, rattling, smoky old things with names like Wartburg and Trabant. Car-wise, this is what the end of the world looks like. Nothing good could possibly come out of this black wasteland. But as the world rushed by, Skoda stood still. Or did it? Hold on, what's this? Cool European color, sexy alloy wheels, neatly styled body. Looks kind of well built, too. As a matter of fact, it doesn't look at all out of place in suburban London. But surely, people will still know a Skoda when they see one.
It's a Volkswagen.
I'd say it's a Jap model.
BMW or a Citroen?
Seat.
What is it, a Vauxhall?
Oh, I haven't a clue.
Ford,
It's a Skoda, yeah?
It's very nice. Yeah, it's very nice.
similar to all the others of that type, nothing special.
And my brother had a Skoda for years, but that's a different one.
I thought they were ugly things, Skoda. Do you like that car?
Nice looking motor, but still a Skoda, isn't it?
A Skoda? You mean fill it with gas and double its value, Skoda? Ah, surely some mistake. Yeah, it is a Skoda. But you know, with a little help from Volkswagen, Skoda's created a whole new car here. And you know what? It's a pretty good effort. So, it looks like a bright, smoke and rattle-free future then. But there is something all those millions from Volkswagen can't do for Skoda. It's all about image. Yes, image. And let's not pretend that we don't care what the neighbors think, because if we didn't, BMW and Mercedes would be in a whole lot of trouble. It'd be a real shame if people stayed away from this car because of the Skoda badge, because here is a well-built car with good performance, handling, and ride. It's a little longer and wider than the car it replaces, and room inside for 4 adults is really quite good. And it's got more European style, too. Skoda spent a lot of time and money softening up the corners, rounding off the taillights. Even the front has a more styled look, almost like a Golf. And the good news continues on the inside. Just look at this dashboard. It's soft, curvy, modern design. Could be a Mondeo or a Cavalier. Instruments and switches are easy to use, well laid out. There's plenty of room, too, even for a big guy like me. In fact, the only thing that lets this cabin down, makes me think of the old Skoda, is this cheap and rubbery steering wheel. Well then, would I buy one? Frankly, no, because 6,000 pounds will buy a lot of used car. A Golf, a Peugeot 205 GTI, that sort of thing. But I tell you, if you want a new car and all you've got to spend is 6,000 pounds, you're not going to do better than the Skoda.
A test car with worn shock absorbers tries to brake in wet conditions.
The car is totally above the water with no grip.
This effect is known as aquaplaning, but trying to avoid an obstacle in this situation would be difficult. A car with new shocks in the same test does manage to brake and stop in water several meters before the first car. Shock absorbers are crucial for safe road handling, but according to Warwickshire Police, a quarter of all cars nationwide are believed to have worn shocks and are potentially dangerous.
This survey does support some of the evidence we found in examining vehicles after serious and fatal road accidents. My vehicle examiners find that in as many as a quarter of the vehicles that we examine under those circumstances, there is some sort of defect to the shock absorber.
Racing ace Derek Bell knows that good shock absorbers can help win races and ultimately save lives on the track.
I'm quite amazed, and this, you know, one never thinks of it. We're thinking about tyre wear, we think about brake wear and new discs and that sort of thing, but we never seem to think about shock absorber wear.
Police hope to make drivers aware of their shock absorbers and what they do to keep the tyres on the road and to help with steering. It could reduce the crucial margins of error in a bad accident.
Coming up, after the break, we do 1,000 miles in 3 days in a convertible Ferrari. And James Thomas tests the evergreen Porsche 911 against his best Japanese rival. Imagine being loaned a Ferrari, a convertible one at that, the intensely desirable F355 Spider, and being asked to follow the rerun of the classic Miglia road race from Brescia in northern Italy to Rome and back. Well, that is exactly what I did. Before the start, the car's all assembled in Brescia's Piazza Vittorio. And here, among the Bugattis, Alfas, Mercedes and Bentleys, sat our Ferrari, attracting at least as much attention as any of the competitors. Okay, it's now 9 o'clock in the evening of day one. The formalities of the day are over and the Miglia proper is about to start. We're driving into Brescia. As you can see, the weather really could hardly be worse. But if that's bad for us in our convertible Ferrari, it's a lot worse for most of the competitors who are in cars which don't even have roofs, and they have no choice but to sit there and just get very wet indeed. The car and driver we had all come to watch, Sterling Moss in the Mercedes 300 SLR, which he drove to victory back in 1955. Well, good morning. This is day 2 of the Miglia. The threatened rain still hasn't turned up, although the skies are pretty overcast. We have just joined the actual event itself. It's 10 o'clock in the morning and we've just found our first competitor. The cars on the event are incredible, featuring German racers from Porsche and Mercedes, past British marques like Lotus and Aston Martin, to of course the Italians, particularly Alfa Romeo, Maserati and Ferrari. It's now 1 o'clock on day 2. We're in a little place on the Adriatic coast called Monte. We're stuck in a terrible traffic jam. We've been here for half an hour. The rain is absolutely bucketing down, and all these old cars are sitting here getting overheated while their drivers are getting absolutely soaked. Here's my friend in the Aston. Okay, we're following this V12 Ferrari. In these conditions, the older cars find it very difficult. And not only do the cars have not a lot of grip, and they've got very old drum brakes, not the modern discs like this Ferrari has, so it doesn't stop very well. They also don't have modern ventilation systems. You may be able to see that car, they're actually bailing it out. They've got a cup of water, they're wiping the inside of the windscreen, and they cannot see where they're going. In this sort of weather, these cars are terrifying, even at these pretty pedestrian speeds, and you can only imagine what they must have been like to drive absolutely flat out when this thing was a proper race. And we didn't just thunder through the beautiful Italian countryside. The route also took us right through the middle of Italy's most historic cities. And all the time, the car we were chasing was never far away. Moss, now in his mid-60s, was tackling the conditions with his usual speed and verve.
Just say, no! You know, even though you're about to see water here, you will always not.
That's great.
Good back a bit.
Throughout the trip, the Ferrari proved a fantastic companion, effortlessly fast thanks to its V8 engine and always exciting. And though not quite as fast as some competitors, I couldn't think of a better way to see this event. And just when we thought we'd seen every weather condition, we now have snow. You wouldn't believe this was southern Italy in the early part of summer, would you? This is day 3. It seems at last that all the Miglia had promised has come true today. The weather is fantastic, and we're driving now to go and meet the route and to do, hopefully, some very exciting driving between here, Siena, Florence and the Apennine Mountains. This is pretty much the route the original Miglia took, and it's probably the most historic part of the entire event. The reception in Siena was extraordinary. It brought the city to a standstill. In the Piazza del Campo, they only let cars in on one day a year, and that's the day the Miglia comes to town. Well, on the way home now, we charge north out of Siena and onto an even bigger welcome in Florence. As the final day drew to a close, competitors knew the end was in sight and went even faster. Ferrari was as enthusiastic as ever, as were its fans. The finish. It took 3 full and exhausting days to complete the course. Back in 1955, Sterling Moss did it in just 10 hours.
In the rarefied atmosphere of exotic sports cars, one model has stood the test of time.
So here it is, the Porsche 911. Over 25 years old now and still the most practical sports car of all time. It's the toy you smashed against the skirting boards as a kiddie, but it's also the car you cursed as the emblem of 80s excess. Love it or loathe it, it just ain't gonna go away.
Porsche has reigned a succession of technical updates on the car, from turbocharged engines to multi-link rear suspension, from full coupe shape through Targa versions to this swanky cabriolet. It may look a bit behind the times to some, but underneath its skin, there's technology few have come to match.
You can tell there's not a lot that's changed in here in 25 years. You've still got this ridiculously oversized tacho in the middle. You've still got this funny old push-pull switch gear. It clunks in and out. The really interesting thing about this car is its gearbox, though. This is the Tiptronic S version of the 911. Basically, what you have is a conventional automatic box, but if you flip the lever across to the right, you get a manual box as well, with 4 ratios. What's really different, though, it gives you a little bit of a taste of Formula 1. These little buttons here on the gear change, you knock it down like that, and it gives you a higher gear. Knock it up, gives you a lower one. So you can play around at being sort of Emerson Fittipaldi all day if you want.
But now, you don't have to be as good as him to get the most from the car. Fabled for its notoriously challenging handling, Porsche has put the 911 through finishing school, and now its manners are impeccable thanks to advanced multi-link rear suspension. 25 years of engine development have seen the famous air-cooled flat six expand to this latest 3.6 litre specification. 911s have always been about performance, but there's equal emphasis on safety with twin airbags and beefed up rollover protection in this cabriolet version. But people buy the car because it's so practical to use on a day-to-day basis, with room for small kids or luggage in the back and further space, albeit sparse, under the bonnet. But even with all this evolution behind it, can it keep its distinctive nose ahead of its more modern rivals? The Japanese NSX was a clean sheet attempt by Honda to make the definitive supercar. Hand-built by a dedicated team of boffins, the NSX was secretly developed behind closed doors to wipe the floor with the supercar establishment. Despite a hugely successful Formula One racing program, the buying public just hasn't embraced the NSX. Poor sales have forced Honda to re-engineer the car with a removable Targa roof panel, which should appeal more to American tastes.
These could hardly be more different than the 911. You sort of push back into a nice relaxed drive position, not a sort of sit up and beg aggressive position like in the 911. The dash is completely different, it's totally modern, and it too's got a remarkable tacho, because it goes up to 7,500 revs. Amazing engine this car has. If you look around, you'll see that Honda go for a similar sort of gearbox to Porsche, similar sort of automatic layout, but they decide to put their box of tricks, their sort of what they call their F-matic gear change up here. Again, it's like the Porsche, you tip it upwards to go up the box to select a higher gear. If you knock it twice, that takes you down 2 gears, give you a bit more performance.
The shove comes from an extraordinary mid-mounted V6 engine fitted with trick valve timing control, giving optimum torque whatever gear you're in. The Targa top stows cleverly above the engine compartment, but the interior, although packed with ultra high-tech features and swathed in leather, lacks the character of the 911. Of course, both these cars are extremely desirable and usable on a day-to-day basis, and they lack that look-at-me flashness of a bright red Ferrari. But there has to be a winner.
So what we've got here is a battle of technology against tradition. For the Honda, it's very, very easy to drive. It's got a terrific V6 engine in the back, it's spacious. It doesn't look bad, it's made of aluminium. But what about the steel Porsche? It's got that legendary flat six engine in the back. But the key point is, it's practical. That's why they sell so many. It's got luggage space under here. You can fit 2 people in the back. For me, the Porsche is the clear favourite.
Next in our Saturday stack, we test drive the latest Japanese mini cars.